We're actually going to start LeBron. And Bull, 3 minutes before the show, made a great point and said, guys, I think I'm hotter about the Guardians than anything LeBron related. And I think I agree with you.
Well, thank you, because that was such a frustrating game yesterday. You know, we did the show yesterday, Jason, myself, and Zach. And I made the point of saying, like, hey, I love Gavin Williams. I've been high on him from the moment he came up. Best stuff on the team.
Been great.
And he had been great from the middle of last year until the beginning of June this year. And since June, he's been kind of up and down. And I said, you know what? The Guardians got to win this series. You can't split a series with the Twins after winning the first two. You got to win this series. I need Gavin Williams to go out there and be the ace that he is most
he did.
often. And he took care of business.
The team let him down.
7 innings, 2 hits, no walks, 11 Ks, no runs.
Immaculate
inning. Absolutely lights out. You can't lose a game when your ace does that. That was so frustrating.
How many times did they have runner at third and nobody out and couldn't score?
I know they finished 0 for 17.
Well, in extra innings, obviously, you get a runner at second, nobody out. And 3 innings, they didn't even get him home.
I think at least 3 times in the game, I'd have to go back and look. They had a runner at third, nobody out, couldn't get him home.
Yeah.
That feels on
and 0 for 17 with runners in scoring position.
That's abysmal.
I mean, come on.
That's been their Achilles. What's most maddening about this team is in game 1 of the series, they slugged 7 home runs.
Right.
And you think they found it. Here it is. This is what we've been waiting for. And then the rest of the series, I was at the second game of the series.
Yeah.
They kind of won by hook or crook. They built some runs, good guards ball, although they were sloppy defensively. And then the last 2 games of the series, they're playing with house money, and they go out there and get boat raced on the third game on Wednesday. And then yesterday, -1 home run swing. Their offense is as advertised. It was, and they're 0-2 with Hosey back in the lineup.
Yeah. And, the bullpen didn't get it done yesterday. They bring Kate Smith in the 8th.
Which I don't love. I don't love it.
I'm fine with it. I'm not going to say I love it, but I'm fine with it.
Something he doesn't ordinarily do.
But you know what? You're facing Alan Roden. I mean, this guy is
a major leaguer too.
Yeah, you got to get him out.
You do have to get him out.
You got to get him out. Let's go.
And I felt pretty good in that spot. I'm like, and it really, what it spoke to me was Voter wanted that one bad.
Oh,
he knew how big that game was. A split feels like nothing happened.
Right.
And, of course, the Tigers went on later in the day and won.
Yep.
The whole thing now is, look at the standings. You got Detroit, who just a month and a half ago was 11.5 games behind the Guardians. Now they're 4.5 games behind the Guardians. They have all the momentum. I still think they're going to win the division. And
I still think they're going to trade Skubal.
Yeah, I don't.
Which I wouldn't do if I were them, but I think they're going to do it.
It's a big gamble. You get nothing if you keep them.
They're in a tough spot. They're in a really tough spot.
They are. But you know what? Here's why I keep them.
Yeah.
And I thought about this a lot over the last couple of days. What are they going to do? First of all, Helton's been fantastic, so it's not like he's the only arm that's been getting it done.
Melton.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you look at we talked about the American League is very easy to win this year.
Yeah.
If you've got Skubal in a playoff series, I don't care if it's 5 games, 7 games, I don't care what it is. You have the upper hand. I don't care who you're playing. He hasn't been as good this year, and he's been injured.
No. Yeah.
But if I'm Detroit, I think they're a hell of a lot closer to getting to a World Series right now than the Guardians are. The Guardians can't hit.
You don't have to convince me on that. I would keep them if I were the Tigers, but they're not. I don't think they're going to risk him walking away for nothing. But the point is, your same point that you're making about the Tigers, and you're right, and they've got Skubal and we don't.
We don't have one of those, though.
No, but Gavin Williams is better than anybody else they got. And I know Melton's pitched great.
Yeah,
and I know and Messick has pitched great, but I still think Gavin Williams is better than anybody they got.
I know, but Bull, I think it's through time, historically, when you look at the way these series tend to play out, it oftentimes is the team that has that A++ pitcher. We've got an A+ pitcher, I think. We've got an A pitcher in there.
Yeah.
We don't have the A++.
No.
And I think Skubal is that guy for Detroit.
He is.
So I'm holding him in my hand, and I'm going to discard him, because I think if you discard him, you're absolutely punting on this season. And I know that you're getting prospects in return, but heck, the American League has never been so winnable.
I hear you. They got Flaherty, who's hurt, Mize, who's a little banged up, and Verlander, if you care about that, are all going to be free agents at the end of the year.
He's retiring.
Verlander. To me, bullpen nowadays is just as important, if not more important, than having that ace. Because these teams, they go to the bullpen in the 5th, 6th inning in the playoffs, all the time. We've seen it
You know what's most
since
important?
2016.
Scoring runs.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen.
And we can't do it.
Well, you got to – the lineup is better than it's been the last couple of years.
I'll give you that.
But it's not good enough. And they need a dude in the middle of the lineup. We've been talking about this. It was another example yesterday of you could – I mean, all they needed really was one big hit. One.
A fly ball. A fly ball at many points. I was disappointed in their lack of aggression in the 6th, 7th, 8th innings. They had guys on first base.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, Hosey's on. He's definitely going to steal a bag.
Yeah.
Bazzana was on, I think, once, and I thought, well, he's going to go. And we didn't. And I can't understand why. And in one case, we hit into the double play. Next pitch, ground ball, inning over. So you went from a man on, nobody out, 2 pitches later, you're in the field again.
The Guardians have not been as crisp this year as they usually are in the field and on the bases.
Agree on
They're
both.
still, above average. They're better than most teams, but they've usually are elite running the bases and playing the field, at least in most spots. And they haven't been this year. It's been a little spotty. And you're right. I put that on vote to some degree. Like
Yesterday,
you got to be when you're not scoring runs, you got to be aggressive. But then, you think about this in the bottom of the 12th.
Yeah.
Right. That was the last inning. Was
It
the
was.
bottom of the 12th.
Yeah. I think they got first and third.
Right. They had first and third.
Yeah.
And because Bailey walked, and you got Stephen Kwan on deck, who's red hot, right?
Been on fire.
And who do you bring up as a pinch hitter? You got to bring up Daniel Schneemann. The guy hasn't had a hit since May, I don't think.
He's cooled off completely.
And, that's what you're stuck with. It's not even just the starting lineup. It's that their bench is so bad. There's other teams got, guys you really believe in that you could bring in a big spot. If they had a good pinch hitter, you bring him in there, he gets a hit, and now you're back to the top of the lineup, you got a chance. But when you got to pinch hit Schneemann in that situation, it's terrible.
When it was 1-0, and I believe it was the 6th when they had a man on with nobody out. May have been the 7th. A run there makes it feel like it's 10-0. I mean, Minnesota wasn't doing anything offensively.
Yeah.
You had to feel a 2-0 lead.
2-0 would have
felt like, especially with the arms in the bullpen that are yet to go. And by the way, Sabrowski, what's going on here? What's going on here? When they brought him into the 12th, I was in the middle of the 4:00 show and I'm watching it on my phone, just the score panel.
Yeah.
And when I saw that he was coming on, I go, game's over.
Well,
that's it. The game is over.
I'll tell you, right now I don't trust him. I certainly don't trust Sean Armstrong. I don't trust Matt Festa. They need another bullpen arm too. I mean, the hitter is the priority, but bullpen is not hard to get. I mean, it's hard to get a guy like Chapman, who now obviously is not going to get traded, or Mason Miller, who would cost a fortune. But getting just a good solid bullpen arm doesn't usually cost you that much, especially if it's a rental type player. The Guardians have to be aggressive.
Are you still in on trading, Jay? Because about a week or two ago when we had this conversation, I really wasn't sold on it. I don't think this is a year that they're going to. They're not a World Series team.
So
you're still in?
Absolutely.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Just because of where again, we've talked about this before. I think Angel Hano is a big part of their future.
I wouldn't give him up.
I don't know that they're in a hurry to move on from him. But short of that,
well, you're not giving up Velasquez either.
No, I wouldn't give him.
Whoa.
Well, it depends on who it is.
Okay, let's make that clear.
Yeah. If you're telling me they have a chance to get Tarek Skubal, then we're having a different conversation.
Yeah. Or Yordan Alvarez.
You know what, though, guys? I know that was on the sheet for this one. They're not getting Tarek Skubal.
No, they're not. No, I understand that. They're not getting Tarek Skubal. But
it's not who they are. They don't make moves like that. I mean,
I think this
to go out and get Andrew Miller in 2016.
Yeah.
Paid huge dividends.
Yeah. And he had multiple
But outside of that, when have they ever gone after the big guy?
Well,
never.
I mean, Miller had multiple years of control after that.
Which made sense.
I think this is the perfect year to go after a guy who's up at the end of the year because you don't know what next year's going to look like.
There may not be next year.
We have to put their feet to the fire. They have to do something out of the norm. You have to. Yeah, and by the way, they should be screaming about it in Pittsburgh, too. They should be doing the same thing there.
And this conversation reminds me exactly of the conversation that we were having before they went out and made the trade, the Browns, for Deshaun Watson. everybody was like, well, what we're doing isn't working. We got to swing for the fences. And we swung for the fences and we struck out.
I don't think there's a comparison at all because the Browns are
we're not a piece short, Bull. We're not.
I don't Jay, you never know when you're a piece short. I think you're
I usually know by watching.
I disagree. I know they're not playing particularly great baseball now, right? But season ebbs and flows. You know that. The Tigers stunk for 2 months. Now they've been playing well since June.
I get that.
And you get hot at the right time. The year the Guardians in 2016, that Indians team at the beginning of the playoffs, did you really think they were going to the World Series? Because I didn't.
No, but I love their bullpen.
I hear you, but
that was it.
They had nothing in the rotation by the time we got to the playoffs outside of Kluber. Now, Kluber was A++, as you're talking about.
And that's what you need. We don't have that guy.
But I think the reason you think they're not a World Series team is because you have no faith that they're going to make a significant move. And you're probably right, but we shouldn't just be okay with that.
Bull, you're right about that. I just go on history. When have we done that?
No, you're right.
And so
you're right. They're probably not, but that stinks, and it stinks from the fans.
In most years, Bull, I'm on your side. In most years, where I look at a team,
who can't they beat? Who's so good they can't beat?
Well, you know what? I think this series with the Rays is huge for decision making.
But look at the Rays roster.
Here's why.
Their lineup stinks outside of their top three guys.
They're running away with the American League, and they stink.
No. I'm not saying they stink. I'm saying their lineup stinks outside of their top three guys. So I'm like, it's not. The Rays don't stink. They're a good team. But they're not. You look at the Rays and the Guardians, I don't see it. Where are the Rays significantly better than the Guardians?
Well, look at the standings. They're a lot better.
I understand that.
That's why I think we're not just a move or two away.
Yeah.
Bull, in most years, I want to be aggressive. I really do. But what has this team done in free agency in the last decade? What have they done?
Nothing.
They took two kind of shots. They signed Zunino, a guy who was out of baseball, I think, by July of that year.
They signed Josh Bell, who's been great since he left here.
Who stunk it up here.
Yeah.
And has since gone on to turn into a pretty good player.
Lane Thomas, who's playing pretty well for Kansas City right now.
Yeah. We haven't been the big spender. We haven't been aggressive in free agency. We haven't been aggressive at the trade deadline. And I know, okay, well, that might be an excuse for why you change what you've done. It hasn't worked. But now, if you're going to do an Atlanta Braves from a couple of years ago, when they went all in and added multiple pieces and went from being under 500 in August to winning the World Series, okay. But if you're going to add a mid-bat and another reliever, like that, you're wasting your time.
Well, if you did something like that, it wouldn't cost you much in terms of prospects. So I wouldn't kill on that. They're not going to trade their two best prospects unless you were getting a superstar.
Are they off limits, Jay? The two that we talk about?
Not for a superstar. No chance.
I don't think anybody's off
limits.
No
one's off limits.
But let's be realistic. They're not trading Velasquez or Hano.
I can't imagine a scenario where they do.
Realistically, they're not.
I can't imagine where they would do that. I can't.
Yeah, well, because the only guys you would trade them for are guys they're not going to acquire. Like, of course you would trade them for Yordan Alvarez. That would be a no-brainer if the Guardians could do it.
But first of all, I don't know that the Guardians are. I would love to know what they believe. I would love to know inside their meetings when they're having these conversations, and they are. Do they think that they're one bat away from being a World Series contender?
I just don't think you could ever say for sure. But I don't. Jay, look at the other rosters in the American League. I understand the Rays have a much better record than the Guardians, right?
They do, and I know what you're saying.
Nobody else has that much better of a record.
You're saying their best. They're the first three guys in their lineup are good, and after that it gets slim.
They need hitting too.
Well, look at the first three guys in our lineup.
I agree.
They're nowhere near what Tampa's producing.
I'm not even saying.
What's our home run leader have? 11?
11.
That's bull. This is our best slugger.
Yeah.
100 games in.
Let me ask you this.
Has 11. That means at the end of the year, it's in all likelihood, our home run leader is going to have 16 home runs. There are guys that had that in May.
Jay, as a team, though, real quick, I just want to mention this.
Yeah.
Both the Guardians and the Rays have exactly 103 home runs.
Okay.
Tampa,
So the Guardians, would you say besides the Dodgers that the Rays and the Brewers have been the two best teams in baseball?
Well, record-wise, yes, but I don't know that I would necessarily say I think that they have the best chance of winning the World Series.
Okay, but
I see where you're going. Yes,
and the Guardians have as many home runs as the Rays, and they have more than the Brewers.
Yes.
So you do it different ways. Do the Guardians ultimately need more power to win the World Series? Of course they do, 100%. They won't win the World Series as is. But I think if for once, and I know the easy thing to say is, well, Bull, you know it's not going to happen. And you're probably right. But that's not going to stop me from saying, do whatever you have to do to be aggressive to get that superstar hitter. Because that one dude, you talked about how having that one dude, having that Tarik Skubal can make such a difference. So can one guy. If you added
one bat,
I believe that. If he was a superstar, not a middling guy, if you added a superstar bat, and now your 1 through 5 is Quan, Bazana, Jose, whatever the superstar is, and DeLauder, and Alvarez, I mean, there's not a lot of teams better than that 1 through 5.
No, but I think there are. But, Bull, again, this team hit 7% of its home runs for the season Monday night. 7%.
I don't disagree.
I mean,
I don't disagree.
It is beyond nauseating for me
Yeah.
that this team at the 100-game mark, that their home run leader has 11 home runs. It is
I'm not arguing
an
that.
embarrassment.
It is an embarrassment.
And I don't see how adding one stick is going to suddenly bring the entire middling group up to par.
Because go ahead, Jay.
Well, here, the Angels need a catcher. They're looking for a catcher.
Yeah.
The Guardians, I don't know what Bo Naylor's trade value is. Probably not a lot.
Nothing.
Cooper Ingle probably has a little bit of trade value. He was a disaster up here, but would you move Cooper Ingle to the Angels?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For who?
After what I saw from him, yes. Now a month ago.
But now you're making a move.
Yes, but for who? Who are you getting for that
Reed
move?
Detmers.
Okay.
I don't know if you can get him or not. Probably you have to include more than Cooper Ingle.
I think you would.
Or a reliever
yes,
from.
I think you would. But guys, I think where we disagree, because I don't want to make it seem like stand pat, sit on your hands.
Yeah.
We always do that, and it's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
But I think where we disagree is the evaluation of the talent on this team right now.
Yeah.
I can't squint a million ways. I've tried it. I can't squint and see this team in the World Series. I just can't.
I can with additions.
I see both sides.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and normally I would agree, but I do believe the American League's wide open.
I don't think anybody's that good.
Wide open.
Listen, I said yesterday upstairs that it's never been more open. It is in my lifetime, Bo,
and that's why.
In all of our lifetimes, the American League has never looked like this.
Yeah,
Look at the American League West. There's nobody over
And you know
500.
what? I want to go back to what you said earlier because I've been chewing on this, and it was an interesting point about Baker and Sean and when the Browns made the swing. The Browns were trying to chase Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and they thought they needed a guy like that. There is no Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen in the American League. So that to me is one.
Right.
Of,
That's right.
I don't think you're far off in what you said. I've been like marinating.
And
on
the
that.
Browns screw most things up.
Yeah,
the
they
Guardians don't.
But it just
that's
the
fair.
American League is so open this year. It does feel like it's right there for the taking. I've wanted one more reliever. You're right. The Red Sox are back in it. I really wanted Araldis. They're not moving him now. They're probably going to add
no,
at this
they've come
point.
from they're back from the dead.
But if you give me one big time reliever to add into the back of that bullpen and one bat, I'm trying to remain relatively realistic. I don't think the Astros are going to trade Alvarez.
No, probably not.
So, but if you get a right-handed bat, and there's none out there, that's the other problem.
I know,
Who are you
that's the
going to
problem.
add? There's just, your guy Farron said Lane Thomas. I wanted to run through the wall and
we've
get my
been
car.
there. We've done that.
But if
Because
that's the best available,
everybody's just comfortable accepting the fact that the Guardians are not going to do anything significant, and I understand that. But if they went out of the norm for one, when the Brewers traded for CC Sabathia, that was completely out of left field for them.
Yeah, and they had exactly.
I know they didn't win the World Series, but what a difference he made.
And what a run they had.
What a run they had,
They
right?
put a saddle on him
And you know what? If I'm a Brewers fan right now, I want my GM to do the same thing with Tarik Skubal, because the Brewers have been the bridesmaids too many times, and so have the Guardians. And I understand the Guardians are not playing great baseball. And I understand that their lineup, as is, to me, is not good enough. And they will lose a series in the American League, very likely. But one big bat, and again, it's not going to be easy to get. It may not even be possible. They may be unwilling. But if you did go for a guy, and I'm not saying trade Ralphie Velasquez for a rental. Right. That doesn't make any sense.
Makes zero sense.
Right. The only way I would trade a guy like Ralphie Velasquez is if I could get Yordan Alvarez. Yeah. That's it. That's the exception.
This is a question I don't know the answer to, and I hope one of you guys do. What happens to the Major League Service clock? What happens to the contracts if next year's wiped out?
Yeah, I'm not.
So let's say we trade for a guy that's under control through next season.
Yeah.
Does that season get moved to 28?
No, the clock keeps running.
Are we sure about that?
I'm
Okay,
pretty
so
sure.
that is more fuel for why I'm not doing a deal. We may end up trading for a guy that we don't think is a rental, and he may end up being exactly that. He might be a rental.
I think you definitely got to factor that in. Yes,
And that's why I say I'm more willing than ever to buy on a rental this year. Because
right.
who
Not
knows
not
what next
not
year's
with
gonna look like.
Jay, I'm
Velasquez.
surprised that the clock doesn't stop.
Well, because guys are under contract. You're not going to.
But they're not being paid.
Yeah, but I'm almost positive. Like, check with Meisel on this.
Oh yeah, that's what he said.
No. I
Oh.
said you talk to him more than I do.
Yeah.
The you don't get the money, but the contract keeps rolling because
See,
you
that's
don't push 27 to 28.
Yeah.
But I
How can
feel
you
like
do
you
that?
should because you didn't get the $27.
But it's now 2028. The contract is written for 2028.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's written for years, isn't it?
Uh,
Like the end date, and this is something that I honestly don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know the answer
I'm,
to it.
See, I'm. a
I
little-
think
you're
you're
pretty-
right.
you're
I'm
pretty confident
surprised
about
it's
it,
that
so
way,
I'm
but I do
guessing
think you're right.
I'm fuzzy on. I'm where I need to do some work is like if it's a lockout versus strike.
Oh, does that
and
change it?
I don't know.
So like, yeah,
If
it's all a
if
great
the,
question.
If the owners are locking out the players, how is that different than the players going
Yeah.
on strike?
Well, it's going to be a
dig
lockout.
into it
I mean,
during the
that's what it's
commercial
going to
break
be.
here,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah,
find
yeah.
out because if the clock stops,
Yeah.
it makes it even less likely that the Guardians are going to do anything.
I believe
because
that-
now you'd have to go for someone that has 2 years and this year remaining on their
yeah,
deal.
I mean, it makes it less likely, it changes if they think that there's going to be no season, which is certainly possible.
I think that there will be baseball next year.
you do.
I do. I don't think it's going to start March 28th or whatever.
Right.
But I think we're going to have baseball.
Well, even if it ends up being around the All-Star break, like you
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
would the Guardians still give up a couple of key prospects for a guy that ends up pitching the remainder of 26 and part of 27, and then they lose him?
All I know is, and obviously it worked out, and I know it's easy to say, well, if it doesn't work out, but the Cubs traded for Aroldis Chapman in 2016.
Yeah,
And they
that
gave
worked.
up at the time their guy who was their best prospect in Gleyber Torres, who turned out after a couple of great years with the Yankees, he's just a good player. He's,
player,
fine,
yeah, he's a good
but
player.
he's not as good as everybody thought he would
Well,
be.
the Cubs would do that deal a million times
Right.
over again.
Even
because
if
without him, they don't
even
win
if
the World
Torres
Series.
had been the best player, it doesn't matter. Now, again, there's certainly no guarantee the Guardians are going to win. And even if you get out of the American League, the National League team that gets to the World Series,
Will be
probably the
better than
Dodgers
us.
will be a big favorite.
Yeah.
But you got to get there, right?
No, I get that.
You know
I
what I'm
get that.
saying?
And then when
Nope.
you get there, it's baseball. Anything can happen.
That's right.
You
That's
ride a
right.
hot arm. You win
And
3
that
games
doesn't
in a
mean
7-game series.
I'm not saying just trade all your best prospects for just a 1-year run. That's it. But don't just be like, if you could get somebody special for long term, and when I say long term, more than this year or next, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I can't
Let's
wait to
do
see
it.
what kind of movement we have at the trade
Yeah.
deadline because this is a year like we've never seen.
Yeah.
Because normally you're a defined buyer or a seller. In the
Yeah.
American League, it's all gray.
Yeah, except for the Royals.
Everybody is in it except for 3 teams.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.